Are you trying to choose the perfect read aloud book for your child? Today, I want to share 3 things to think about when you're trying to choose a read aloud book. The first thing that you definitely want to keep in mind when you're choosing a read aloud book for your child is the difficulty level of the book. You want to choose something that is more difficult than what your child can read on their own, but not too difficult for them to understand. So you want to hit kind of that sweet spot in the middle. It's okay sometimes to read books to your child that they could read to themselves. I think it's important that we show our kids that we still want to read to them, even though they're independent readers. And I think for some kids, that can actually set them back a little bit in the process of learning how to read because they think that maybe we'll stop reading to them once they become an independent reader and they really enjoy being read to. And so that can sometimes be a setback for some kids. So I think it is important that we are still willing to read to our kids, even books that they can read to themselves sometimes. But when you're intentionally choosing a read aloud book for your homeschool or one that you're going to invest some time in reading together as a family, I think it's really important to choose one that's a little bit more difficult than what your child would be able to read themselves. You really want to be exposing your child to books that are a little bit more complex, maybe a vocabulary that's a little bit more in depth, something that they can really learn from as you're reading. And you can be able to help them as you walk through the book together to explain those new vocabulary words or to walk through those more difficult concepts. And that's where the learning really occurs when you're reading a book out loud together. So the first thing to really think about is that difficulty level. The second thing that you want to consider is the content of the book. You really want to think about what kind of themes are presented and what kind of subjects are discussed. Sometimes having a read aloud book that's about a specific topic can be a really great way to lead to teachable moments about that topic. So if there's a certain character trait that you're trying to instill in your kids, you might want to look for a read aloud book where the main character displays that character trait, or where the main character is learning and growing in that area. And that would give you an opportunity to just have a lot of really natural discussions with your child over the course of you reading the book together to be able to talk about that trait and to talk about different ways that you see your child working to develop it. So there's just lots of opportunity there for teachable moments if you're really intentional. You also want to think about the content and the themes of the book from the aspect of what's appropriate for your child. You want to make sure that your child isn't going to become uncomfortable or get scared by things that are just a little bit above their head. And so that's really important to make sure of as well when you're doing read aloud books with your child. And then the third thing to consider when you're choosing a read aloud book is just the logistics of the book. You want to look at how the book is laid out. You want to look at the length of the chapters. Are there any pictures? And just those kinds of things that will help you to gauge how reading the book is going to go. In general, when I'm looking for a read aloud, it's always a bonus if the book has shorter chapters, because sometimes it can be hard to stop in the middle of a chapter. And so books with shorter chapters will give us a little bit more flexibility in terms of how much we read at once. It's not a non-starter for us, it's just something that's nice to consider. If you're reading out loud to a younger child, a book that has even a few pictures can be a big help as well in terms of helping your kids visualize what's happening in the story and stay engaged in the reading. So there's 3 things to think about when you're choosing a read aloud book. What do you like to consider when you're choosing a read aloud book for your child? Please leave your answer in the comments.